Hi, good afternoon, fancy people. This is Kate Quinn of Fabricated Quilts, and I am super excited to bring you more fun designs featuring the Westalee design line of products from So Steady. And I'm thrilled to be able to be here with you and share that. So let's start off with the template that we're going to feature today, and we'll let a few people sign in and then we'll say hi to some people. So let me get the template. You have that red right there. Okay, here we go. All right, let's see if we can give you a little top-down view of our baby today. Ooh, close your eyes. I'm gonna have to adjust my camera. It's really acting up. It's not gonna let us do what I want to do. Let's see if I can tip it down a little so we can get some more better visual. There we go. Now we gotta tighten it up. Hang on just a second. Let me get it all secure. Ooh, usually I do a better job than that. Sorry. We'll have to adjust it back once we get onto the machine, I guess. It's a very odd angle, but we're just going to go with it for a minute. Let's get it straight. There we go. Yeah, honey's here. He's with me today. He's helping out. So, okay, here we are. So here is the Circles on Quilts. This is number 15, and let me show you some of the imagery. So right there is one of the potential designs. Remember that this is just an inspirational image. It's very much not the only thing that the design can do. It can do so many other things. So it does have the center reference line. Your key is kind of out here. And then it's got some visual reference lines. We're going to show you how to use those. And then this one does have a pin. All the circles on quilts are designed to spin around a pin. But we're going to show you several ways that you can use it that doesn't require the pin as well. That's a lot more flexibility than just one or two designs. So also, if you were ever to use it, maybe as a border or something like that, this reference line is your needle reference centering line. So if the foot is in here, then this is where the needle would be aligned. So if you had this on a seam right here, something like that, then the needle would be able to go right into the seam. So let me kind of show you some of the, some people had commented in the past that they kind of like to find out how the design happens, how in my mind. So I was at a show and I was playing around, and this was one of the designs that I came up with, and I'm going to kind of scoot it out a little bit so we can give you some better view, because we're going to need to kind of have some top down when we're sewing so you can see better. So let me show you some things I noticed about this when I sewed it, and we're going to fix those today when we show you how to do it. So I loved this. I thought this looked fantastic. I was so excited about it. I was blown away. I mean, it looked better than I thought, even down to the yellow thread that I decided I was going to have to do something with like that later because I loved how it looked. But let me show you a little fine detail, right? So this one has 3, and notice how it's not connected on the bottom right there. And then when I did some other ones, some of them, are nice and even, like this one looks pretty even, and then look at this one, not so even. So what I was trying to do is kind of fill it up. See how this one connects all the way to the bottom on this one? Well, they don't actually fit like that really well. So the way that we're going to do it today is it's going to make it symmetrical and even, but you're going to get this bigger gap on both sides. And I don't want to try to crowd one more in there, just let this part be big. So this is one of the designs. So then here's another one. Woohoo! So, and we'll stop showing so much. We're going to show you the base stitch out first. And the way that, I'm going to start trying to develop my content is we'll do the easy one first, whatever the basic design is that has the most easy references and everything else. And then we're going to gradually start adding things that might be something more complex. Now, we said that this one has a pinhole. So this is 8-point crosshair, and I'm going to put the pin right in the center. Don't stab yourself like I do sometimes. Nice, easy to see hole right there. I know that I think Donnell is using some tape sometimes. She's taping the pin. I haven't tried that, so I can't really speak to that. I would be lying if I said I have, but it does prevent that hole from being there. So that's just an idea for if you have a delicate fabric that hole might really be a big mess. This is a batik, so it's very tightly woven, so it's probably going to be just fine. Now, let's talk about, before we start stitching, I'm going to just line it up in the front here for you. So obviously this is bigger than the line. So if you really want that perfection, it might be worth taking a second and just putting a little straight edge on there and making sure that you have enough of a line. It's going to be fine on the diagonals because they're longer, but we'll just make this one a little bigger. So that's going to help us with the accuracy piece. This is the 12.5-inch crosshair that I marked this with, but we definitely want those lines to be nice and long and visible. So just one more. Why didn't I do this earlier? I don't know. I didn't realize I needed that, but I see that I do. Okay. All right, so let's put this inside and we'll get lined up. So obviously right there, the pin is in the center. Notice that on this template, there's no number. There's no A to B to C to whatever. There's nothing. So what is the most practical way to sew this out? And that's why I picked this one, because I do think that this one needs a little help. Let's see, get you in a little closer there. Yes, because I wanted to show you. I like it. That's why. That's true. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so right here, this reference line is going to end up being really important. But we'll just start down in the dip for a minute because we can. Lower your foot. Get your needle picked up. This is a somewhat, of course it's so short, right? It would be as I'm trying to get it up so I can show you. There we go. Tuck it right in there, pick up that bobbin thread, and I do want these threads to be underneath the template, so I don't want them out dragging around. I'll even try to cut them once we kind of move away from there so that they'll be out of our way. So line up, get your foot there, get your bobbin thread in there. All right, and I'll let you see it from this direction. Here we go. So we're just going to sew around, and where we're going to stop is in line with this reference line over here. Okay? Right here, you need to go slowly around this corner. If you fly around it, you're just going to go, woo! So right as you come around, this is that exterior type of corner. Just go a little slowly, and then you can pick your speed back up. So same thing here, just go a little slowly right there. So that way the foot can hug that curve. So here we'll essentially tie off right there where we were, And don't move your ruler, and just sew right back up the line, right around the curve. And you're getting your needle lined up with the reference line. So let me show you where that is. So right here, we want to line it up with the reference line. So maybe we'll just take one more stitch, I think. We'll adjust this as soon as we turn it. Oh, darn it. I really want to get this arm adjusted better. Can you guys close your eyes for a second? This is not a good position. We need to adjust our camera better. Give you some better view. I don't want to make anybody dizzy, but that is just too annoying. I don't know why it's being so difficult today. Okay, is that better? If you could let me know. Hopefully that is a little better for you guys. Okay, so we're lined up on the reference line right there, and now we can rotate. Now we have some room. If we try to rotate when the foot is down here, you can't. You would actually have to spin this and move the foot at the same time. And it's really difficult. And I've seen a lot of people that I've shown this to, they're trying to put the foot down here and rotate along. So the next piece, we've come out and we're gonna line the reference line up now right on the stitching that we've already done. So notice that the foot then should be lined right up, exactly touching where we want to. You may have 1 or 2 stitches in order to make the foot touch, but get this aligned right there. And then let me show you. Right here, we're already centered once we do that. We're right on that center line right here. So the foot is touching, we're on the reference line, and our center line is touching. So we're going to have to sew all the way around, and we're going to end up back over here again. When I did the last part, I stitched this part 2 times, right? So I want to make sure that as I go around to here, I'm going to stitch this part 2 times. You could stitch out here, as your double stitch if you want to, that's up to you, or you can stitch on the inside. Whatever you choose, I recommend creating some visual pattern, either keeping it on the inside or keeping it on the outside or alternating. That'll help make sure that the stitching looks somewhat even between the 2 sides. So here we go. We'll go over the corner, nice and slow. Around the corner. Then you can pick up a little speed if you need to. And we should be aligned right perfect right there, so we should be able to stitch right on our existing stitch line and come right back. Now we need to be able to line it up, so we're looking right here to see if we're aligned. If this is 1 or 2 stitches off, it won't matter. You're already in the stitch line, and once you line up, when you move, that's when you can make an adjustment so that you're touching the foot. So right now, I'm going to go ahead, like if I can't turn this enough to get lined up, then maybe that tells me I need 1 or 2 more stitches. Here, let me show you. I can see that I do need more. See here how it can't quite line up right now? So what I'll do is I'm just going to take 1 or 2 stitches in the existing stitch line. I'm not going to change anything. And that lets me shift just enough to get that lined up. Once I'm lined up, I can already tell right here, I'm already lined up on that center line. So again, I'm going to come down this way and sew down on the bottom. So slowly around the corner, and I'm going to adjust my hands a little bit. This is a big template, so I can see I need to adjust a few times. And then right here, slowly around the corner, hopefully being able to stitch right on the existing stitch line and getting yourself up to the next one. So nice and slow right around the corner. And here you can see I'm lined right up with that needle position right there, right on this little reference line. The needle is right in line. looks like I still need one or two. There we go. So getting this lined up right here, I can see that I'm on the visual reference line, and now we can start sewing. Keep your hands flat, and you're not pushing too hard. It's a nice, easy pressure on here. Just keeping the ruler touching. Okay, trying to get us right to that alignment. And this is where we would adjust if we need to. If I can't line up and I'm not on my reference line right there, let's see if we are. Pretty close. I think we could still benefit from 1 or 2 stitches more. There you go. Trying to get that right on that line and getting myself right in the center. So maybe a little smushing is needed. So you can see that this really makes really important use of those crosshair square alignment marks. I think that if we did not have these, it would be super hard to do this design. So getting us lined up. And the next one. So if I am aligned right here and the foot isn't touching, which I believe mine isn't, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to stitch back to the foot and make sure I am touching. So if I took too many stitches and I went out in front of the design, that is an easy place right there where you can make that correction. And that'll help keep the design nice and clean. So one of the things that's important with this template, because it's on a pin, that light touch really matters, because if I'm pulling on this really hard, like holding on and pushing against the fabric, that's when you might get a little torquing of the fabric. And then as we stitch over the line, it's likely that we might miss because we have shifted this, like if we're pushing against it and it's causing some pressure. So that light touch is very important with this particular design. So it looks like we need maybe a couple more. It's about 2 stitches that I think I'm having to make an adjustment. And I think what that's telling me is that I think I'm lined up, visually, but I'm not. So that's okay. It's a pretty easy way to adjust it. You'll be able to fix it pretty simply. And let's get these threads out of here. So we'll get lined up right here on this center line. Keep going that same direction. You'll see when we get down to the end what a big difference that'll make, because there'll be a lot of extra stitching on the inside and it'll all be even. Watch your finger right there. Don't get bit by this little guy. Make sure you're being careful. Slow around the corner. And right up there to the reference line. So we're almost done. I've got a pretty rainbow thread in here today that I'm using. Let's check our alignment real quick. Maybe one more. On this last one, I want to show you something that we want to do. We want to get both sides lined up here because we're on the very last one, so we have the reference line on both sides. So we'll be able to check back here and on this one, as well as checking this center position. So this is when smushing would be good. It's really important that we try to get it as close as possible, because otherwise one side here, the little diamond, will be bigger. So we want to try to make sure that we're doing a good job of keeping this right in the center. slow down. So we're going to double stitch this, and then we've talked a lot about creating the symmetry that we need, and we haven't really done that on this last one. So I'm going to show you that. So we would stitch right up to that point, and then let's turn it around and let's show you what we haven't done. When we were here, oh no, we did it. We're good. We can tack off now. We did end up stitching over that side, so I think we're okay. Let me double check. No, we didn't. This is doubled, but this is not. So let's line this one up. And right here, I'm going to check that with my spacing gauge because I don't want a weird double stitch when all the other ones look so good, right? So I'm going to check it actually a couple of places. Oh, it does look really good though, actually. So I'll start off slow, and if I need to massage with my finger, I will, in order to keep this right on the stitch line. But this is going to let us have a beautiful, even double stitching all the way around. And here, since we've got that double stitching, I'll just tack it off, and we'll be done. Was that different than you expected? Has anybody sewn this a different way? If you have, go ahead and let Honey know. He'll share it, and we'll put it out to the group. I think that when I got this one, I didn't really feel like it had enough instruction. So I did the first couple ones not very pretty. All right, let's see what we got. There, what do you think? Let's see if we can move out a little bit. So we'll come out this way so you can look at it. Isn't that pretty? It is really big. This is a big template. This is going to sew out at 11.5. That's how it's designed as far as the base design. Let's see. Awesome. Thanks, Nan. I love it. I love it too. So one of the things that I don't like is that this has a really open center. And, you know, it's not that it's ugly or anything. I just don't like it. Okay, it's for me, I want something in here. But when this could be really good is if you have a lot of bulky stitches right in here, then this is great to not have your design come right into the center, right? So this could be great for that. But we're going to put something in the center just because we can, just for fun. So this is the Spin E Fex number 5, and it's got 2 sizes. This is part of the mini Spin E Fex. Right? So this is very, very tiny. It's going to sew out at 2.5, and you can always just test it by lining these. Let me show you these lines right here. This is your needle reference right there. So when the foot's in there, the needle will be right there. So I can test this design by lining these lines up on the crosshair line like this. And let's see, we want to actually put it in the middle there. So I'm not going to make any reference lines, but I'm going to line it up in between there when I align the center line. So let's go ahead. I know it'll fit. I already tried it. But I'll show you. I'll show you how we can test it if we need to. Okay, let's put it. It's so small. It's really tiny. Now we have this as a set. There's 3 different pieces in this grouping. And this one is number 5, there's number 4, and let's see what other numbers in there. Number 1, number 4, and number 5. So number 4 is the same one that is in the sampler set collection. So right there is a reference line, a center reference line, and I want it to go right in the middle. So I'm orienting this. Let me see if we can get in a little closer. I want to show you the spacing. So that line is a little hard to see, but I will point it out. Right there in the middle of the key, there is a centering line as it comes down right here. There's a center line. And what I'm doing is I have this much space on one side and the same space on the other. So I'm visually aligning it right in the middle of this right here. And that is just because I don't want to mark because I'm lazy. So here we go. So let the needle stop, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll just go around. I'm visually centering it, and then we'll just sew it out. Okay, next one. So sometimes when you have, if you have strong visual skills, it's kind of nice that you don't have to mark some more, and then you don't have more lines to take off. Now, we've talked about with the Spin E Fex before, it's really easy to have a messy center. So before I align for the next one, I'm going to make sure my needle is positioned right in the center of the design visually. I'm actually looking inside the little hole, and I'm checking the spacing and just making sure that it is lined up. And that'll help make that center a little bit cleaner, but it will have extra stitching right there in the center no matter what, just because that is the design that we've chosen. So these designs are really tiny. They don't easily take a long time. They're so small. And my fun story about this is I have a lady that was in one of my classes, and she took it because she saw a sample, and she was not a quilter, and what she wanted to do was put these as embellishments on her jacket that she made. And it looked so awesome. So, it's kind of funny. You don't have to always use it in that expected way. There's so many different ways that you can use it. So we're in the center, so I'll go ahead and tack it off. And we'll pull it out. And you can see that that's going to add a little bit of a visual interest right in the center there. Hi, Miss Wanda. I haven't seen your name before. Thank you for coming and joining us. So what do you think? Isn't that pretty? And that's a great way to put a little bit more of a fill in there and not leave that open quite as much. And then, of course, you can always put fills in here. This is a fairly large open space. And we are going to show you some ideas for that next. So this is the base design right here. And then we're going to add a little bit. Yeah, it is a really large design. It's basically designed to fit inside of a 12-inch block. That's how large it is, because this is that 11.5. This is your 1/4 inch on each edge. Okay, so just know that it's big, but the designs we're going to show you next show you how to use it in a way that's not quite as big. So let's go ahead, we'll move over to the next space. And one of the things that I like about this template is because of the way that it is, because it's a closed shape like this, we can use it as a Spin E Fex, which is so awesome. So it's not just that you have to use it with the pin. So we're going to start with it rotating from this side, and then at the very end I have one design that shows sort of both sides. So right now we'll put the pin, the foot in the center, and we're going to rotate around this point. Again, I'm going to get those threads out of my way. Okay, and this one is super easy, very easy to sew. I think it's even easier than the other one. You're going to be rotating right around that you know, really easily. It'll just rotate. So all you have to do is line up your reference line and sew the whole thing right back to the center. Again, you're still going to go slowly around these exterior corners like that ones that go to the outside, and sew the whole design. And because we're using it as a Spin E Fex, you want to be looking in there and making sure, am I in the center or do I need one more stitch to close? Make sure that that needle is starting at the same point each time. So you can see I need a longer line, right? I don't know, can we fake it? That's kind of a long way, so I am going to mark that. The other one wasn't quite as bad, but this one, I think it's kind of far to be guessing. Sometimes I will, but that one, it looks like it really needs that line, so we'll just add those in as we go. All right, and this one I can sew it a little bit faster. Right here, this is not going to close, so that's really that key to the design that we showed you earlier, is they're not going to touch, and that's why there is a little bit of a gap that we kind of have to work with when we're creating the additional design with the cross-hatching. So we've always just got to think about what's going to work as we go along. So let's get the next one. Just line it up on the reference line. So you can see it's kind of a weird looking shape, but what's nice about it is it has a really pretty hourglass between the different shapes, which I love, especially when you sew it this way. I like it even better this way than the other one. I like them all, right? But I like this one. This one, I think it looks really beautiful. It's fantastic. So let's make sure you can still see what we're doing. We'll get these threads out of there. We're still having this challenge. Okay, next time I'll try to do a better job marking. But you can see that that's something that, you know, you might not see at first, but it might be worth you going in and making all those extra reference lines, because it's easier, I think, to do it without, when you're not pinned onto the machine already. So you'll have a little bit of an easier time. All right, here we go. Lots of talking, but more sewing, right? So just keep everything aligned. Make sure your foot is touching nicely. So I'll talk for a second about stitch regulation. I saw that somebody was commenting on there and asked maybe if I had a regulator. And I saw that somebody else responded, so I always appreciate that. Thank you for the assist. So what I'm doing is, if you can control your speed, you want your machine to sound very even and rhythmic. I think that sometimes when people are new to free motion, they don't realize, they try to keep up with the machine. Instead of you making the machine go the speed that you feel comfortable, they try to keep up with it, and it creates a lot of anxiety. So if you feel like you're having to race to stitch, remember that it's got to take time to sew every stitch. It can't just go like that. If you are piecing, it doesn't just go from, okay, I just put the piece under there, to 10 seconds and then it stitched that whole length. It has to have time. So it's okay, let it sew. You know, let it have that time, and don't feel like you need to rush it. Listen to the sound of that machine, and it should have a nice, easy rhythm. If it sounds like it's, then that's probably too much annoyance, you know, too much anxiety. So right now, it's just got a nice rhythm, and try to make it so that it sounds like it has the same rhythms. If the rhythm is constantly going faster or slower, then that's really not controlled. Okay, so we can slow down a little bit as we come to the end, of course, but you know, in general, as I go around, if you listen, we should try to have approximately the same sound as we're stitching. So right here I'll slow down, but then as I sew along, this should be nice and even. Okay, it shouldn't be going like, ugh. shouldn't be really fast and then really slow, and then that's when your stitches get kind of rowdy. Okay, so nice and even. Okay, and here's our last one. All right, so because we don't have these reference lines, this line becomes more important than ever, but you can also look right there, and I can tell you that this space is about the same as that, and you can check it even with your spacing gauge. It's not a 1/4 inch, it's bigger, but if you put that right there and right there, I can see that I have about the same distance between both of those. And again, the goal is to help create that symmetry on both sides so that they are even, so they don't have a little bit of a bigger diamond on one side and a smaller diamond on the other side. All right, so let's tie this off, and then I'm going to show you our cross-hatching. We'll clean up all these threads before we add anything else because there's a lot of threads going on. All right, let's cut everybody. Did we get everything? Okay, so I'll show you the whole thing, and I'll flip it over too because I have blue thread on the back, and that'll have less chalk lines. So yes, I'm checking it right now, make sure it's good before I show it to you. See if you can see it. It is a little subtle as far as the color. The blue is a little bit more subtle. It'll focus in just a second. There you go. So very, very pretty. And this is going to sew out about 9 1/4. And I've tried it a couple of times. I tried to understand what the math is, and it is consistently about 9 1/4. So it's about 4 7/8 for the half unit when you sew it out like a Spin E Fex. So from there to there is 4 7/8, and that gives you that 9 1/4 for that part of the design. So now we're going to show you how to put those embellishments in. And this is where I said, you know, these two are sort of what I call like the basics of it. And now we're going to start adding some things that might be a little bit more, you know, I don't think they're too hard, but they are more complicated, and they're more manipulation of the templates and making them do what you want. So this is where we're stepping it up a little bit to that next level. Oh, my sister's gonna stab me. My sister's gonna stab me? I hope not. All right, so this shape right here is what we're gonna start with, okay? We can just start anywhere. And what I want is I need the foot to touch this line. And I'm gonna highlight that just so you can see. Right there, this is where the needle was, and I'm gonna make the foot be right there and the needle be in this line. So that's where we're gonna start. And let's make sure I'm in the line. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'll pull up my bobbin thread, and we are going to stitch probably over this a couple of times, so I'm not worried about anchoring it just yet. Oh, darn it, though, I should have put my template on, before I did that. I think I will go ahead and do that because otherwise it's going to be tricky to get him under there. There we go. Okay, so our bobbin's already pulled up. Get our needle right in the line. This curvature right here is this curvature, but it's not bigger than that curve, right? So let me show you what I mean by it's not bigger. If I line it up right there, I might be able to stitch to the line, but I might not. It's a tight fit. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up the stitch line right on this curve, and I'm going to sew until I touch right here up at the top. So let's go ahead, we'll just get started and we'll start sewing. Once I touch the stitch line, I'm going to stop. Yeah, it is tight. It's about 1/2 of a stitch short. So I'm gonna make sure I get in there. Now I'm gonna stitch back until my foot is touching. So right there, my foot is touching as this curve comes in. So let me show you what I want to do now. This is very tricky, I think, but hopefully you'll get the idea. If I line this up right here, I have not yet stitched up this way, right? I came back to here and I'm not connected up here at the top. So I'm going to line this curve up, but I'm going to give myself some room to go backwards. So I'm going to go backwards until I touch the outer edge right there, and then I'm going to come back. And now I can line this up and get down to the bottom. So I'm going to touch right there. And again, I'm going to go back up. And let me show you where I'm lining up. Right there, I'm touching so that the foot is on this side. Because now I'm going to do this arc right here. And again, I have to go backwards and then go forwards. So I'm going to line it up with the allowance that I have some space behind there so I can touch the back part of it. So touch there, then I'll come forward. And then right when I get to that line, I'm going to just turn this a little bit and give me room for the foot up here. So I'm going to stitch to the line and then back up. And now my foot is touching this curve right here. And I've got to stitch backwards so that I have this whole line. So let's line it up. So notice how I'm pushing it backwards. There's room back here for my foot to go backwards on the same curve. So touch the line. And once I get basically aligned, I can shift this down so I can come all the way in to put the echo in. So touch the line and I'm going to come back up until my foot touches right there. So I have to go backwards and then come forwards. So I'll line it up. Give myself a little room. And I don't know why this works, but it does work. It works because the curve is somewhat symmetrical along the length of this. So even when I go backwards or I go forwards, I still am able to get the echo that I need in order to complete this. So let me show you. This is what we're getting. We get a really cute crosshatch up here at the top, and we're getting this crosshatch right here. So on the part where we are right now, we went over to this line and we came back. So in order to echo this side, I've got to go up and then come down. So I'll line it up on the stitch line. Looks like I might need to go back one more stitch since I can't get it lined up. And now I have this, and I have space back behind here. So there's my little crosshatch at the top, and then I'll just turn this so that I can come all the way down and that there's room for the foot down here beyond the stitch line. Because in order for the needle to end in the stitch line, the foot has to go past that. So here, you can see here on this side now, let me see if we can get you in a little closer, right? So we haven't stitched this part. This is where we're going to come back down. And you can see that this is lined up on that stitch line. So we'll come down until the needle touches the stitches, and then we'll come up. And then from this angle, if I try to put the foot right in there, there's not enough room. So I have to adjust the curve to give me some room for the foot out here. So get the needle to touch, and then we'll come back until the foot is in that space right there. So right there, the foot is touching. And then we can line everybody up, maybe one stitch more. It's not quite lined up, so I'm going back just another stitch so I can get that pretty 1/4 inch, and then we'll go forward. So let's see, we'll have to adjust a little bit there. Okay. So right now, going backwards, let me get some of these threads out of here. I'll move them. I'm going to cut them now that they're free. So I'm lined up. I'm checking right on the back, make sure that I'm lined up on that stitch line so that I still get that nice 1/4 inch echo. And then right here is where I'm going to adjust this forward position so that I have room for the foot. Okay, and then we'll back up, and that lets us put the cross hatching in. So we've got to stitch the back part of it, so we need a little bit of room, so we'll just rotate enough to give us that space. Touch, and then we'll adjust this side. We're touching all right here, and there's room for the foot when we come down. So touch the line, and the foot is going to line up with this stitch line right there, because now this is the new line that we're echoing. Right there is a nice transition where a couple of threads come in. That's why I stopped there. If we stop where it's open, it might be more visible. So this is a nice crossover, and then that's where we can adjust the rest of this position and give us the foot space out here. So now we'll sew up. Touch and come back. So we'll stop right there and then adjust, make sure we have enough room. Right now, where I'm at, if I just put this right there, that tells me if my foot's in the right place. If I can line this up, I don't even have to look behind there. If the ruler can line up on the stitch line, then I already know that I'm in the right position in order to echo this. So right there is where we'll transition. Touch and come back. And then the same thing right here. Give us a little room to come backwards, and then adjust right here to get us all the way down. Okay, so we're almost all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and close the design because I do want to show you how we would put one more round if you were going to go around again and add another echo. So right now, again, we'll have to go backwards. Touch, come up to the line, and then adjust this position. And this will be the last one. This one already has the echo, so as we come in here, let me show you then, this is where we'll get ready to do the next piece if we want to. Oh, darn it, we didn't go backwards. That's the tricky part. Always remember to go backwards first. See, I was talking. All right. So now, we have this as the new stitch line right here, right? So now we're not going to come back up to touch this line. We're going to touch the line that we already created previously on the last round. So let me show you. We'll get you in nice and close. There, trying to get that camera. So this is where we aligned before with the foot touching here, but we created this line now. So now if we come backwards, this is how we would start to do our whole next row. So we'll just do a few of those. We won't do it all the way around, but we'll do enough that you can see. It's the same process now. We're gonna line it up on the new existing stitch line and keep it aligned at the back as well. So touch, coming up to that stitch line, and then adjusting this so you have enough room. So we'll touch, and when we come back this time, we just have to make it touch now at the inner line right there, okay? So each successive row of these cross hatchings is going to give us a little bit more information for the next one. Okay, so now I've got this side. Again, you're going to still have to come down a little to make sure you can get yourself in to that next one. But this time when I come up, I'm just going to touch the new line that we've created there, right? So right there, I'm not going to come back all the way to here. I'm going to use that new crosshatch line that I created the last time. So let's get this lined up. And then right there is that transition. So then we'll get this side lined up so we can come all the way in. And then the same thing, we'll just keep going around. Let's see, make sure you can see it very well. Oh, Patsy, I'm so glad you like it. So here, when I do these, I sometimes, think, like, who's going to sew that? But I do. I sew it. I think it's so pretty and it's worth it. I love how it looks. So I do find, I understand the difference between people that just want to get their quilt done. And there's nothing wrong with that. A quilted quilt that can be used is awesome, completely awesome. But if you want to put those additional embellishments in, you want to make it fancier, then you can do that too. So let's see, if you I've got some questions I'm going to be checking. I make your heart smile? Mary Bennett, thank you. That's so awesome. I make your brain hurt, Bonnie. Believe me, I was having a brain hurt this morning when I was thinking about what I was going to do. Oh. All right, let's see. Make lots of comments. Wait, can I be a top fan? I make lots of comments. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking at your questions. So was this too complicated? I mean, does this make sense to you? Do you get the idea? You can see that as we go up, when we come back, this way we don't have to travel around the outside a bunch of times. So this is a workaround for cross-hatching that I find was really effective for me, especially if you're using the foot as a spacer. You can still do it with wider cross-hatching, like if you had the 12-inch arc has more lines. So the thing with this design is this doesn't have a reference line that you could use. It doesn't have an outline around it. So it's harder to do anything bigger with it than the 1/4-inch Echo. But you can do this same style with so many different templates. You can always use this to go ahead and echo pretty much anything. So right there's the transition with this line. So that'll be a place where you can sort of smooth this out. So rather than do it where it's open, always try to do it where there's already a crossover, because that'll help visually. People will think that it's just a natural transition area. They won't realize that you stopped and you made an adjustment on the curve. So let's get lined up. So I think I need to go one more stitch because I'm not touching. And then we'll curve it. So it's not if it's super perfectly perfect, because you are making some changes to the curve a little bit as you go. So we got to go backwards. And then here we'll adjust that curve to come down. And then I'll just do this last one, I'll tie it off, and then you can kind of see how it'll look. So we won't do the whole thing, but you'll get the idea. All right, let's cut these threads out and then we'll show you up close so you can see what we're doing. Isn't that pretty? So you'll notice right here, of course, we're going to have this be a little bit bigger. This space ends up being sort of a diamond. But because we just did the 2 rows and we measured from this arc instead of measuring bottom and top, I think that that helps make the design really pretty. Also, let me show you with a possibility. I don't know how you travel. It would be tricky to travel, but if you wanted to put something in here, let me just show you. Look at that, right? You can put your foot right in there. Here, I'll just do it. I'll just do one so you can see. You would have to kind of jump stitch these. I think it would be hard to make these continuous, but I still think it would be fun. So right there, you'd have to tack it in. You might be able to do these in between, perhaps. I don't know. I'd have to think about how I would put them in so that you could do them while you're making everything. Maybe you could sew these before you start doing the cross hatching. So right there, we need a connection with our spacing gauge. Otherwise, we won't be able to get that in there prettily. Let's see. Right there. Oh, it's in a bad spot. So if it can't fit, I can shift this up or down, keeping it on the center line until I get the right fit right there, right? So this is lined up on the center line, this part right here. And then I've adjusted so that I have that space right there. So let me just sew it in. I'll just show you what it looks like. And it's going to change the design. Just that simple little bit of something totally changes it. Oh, let me get those scissors out. So doesn't that change it completely right there? It's such a different look. I mean, it definitely makes it look more like a petal, and it reduces the openness. And then like something like this, if you wanted to, you wouldn't even have to do it on every one. You could just maybe do it on the 4 corners and then leave the other ones open, or just play with that and see if you like that. And that, what that does is that creates more density right here with this design. Instead of having it as open as this will create more density. So that could be an option if you wanted to sort of create more here with this crosshatch. This kind of emphasizes the crosshatch, I think, even more. So that's just another option for you. So that way you're using every bit of this template to the maximum ability that you can. Okay, let's see where we're at. So let's go ahead. We're going to set up for our next one. And this is using it then in a very different way than you might expect. All right, sorry, we've got to get cleaned up because otherwise we'll have stuff everywhere. All right, we'll get some of these fuzzies off of there. So we are still going to go ahead and put our foot right in the middle. I do have some extra reference lines on this. I'm only going to use the 8 initially, but then when we do the rest of the design, we're going to do some embellishments. So we need those additional lines at that point. So let's go ahead and get ourselves set. Now, We talked about how you could use it as a Spin E Fex, and we've shown you 2 different ways. Where is that thread? To do that, how you can use, both this side and you can use this side. But now we're going to show you a totally different way. I'm going to line it up in this arc area, this where the transition is right here. And let's start on one of the 4 orientations, and I'm going to make this line touch the crosshair line. And this is one of those things where I'm just making up some random rule. Okay, you can make whatever random rule that you want. And when I say random rule, it's a rule that I can repeat consistently, and it will give me some way of making the design the same. So I could, use my spacing gauge, and I could put, or I could mark a dot, and I could make this touch out here. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted. But here is a no mark, easy way. I'm making the line touch the crosshair line. When I sew in, I'm going to stop at the crosshair. I'm not going to go past it. I'm just going to sew until the needle is in the line. Okay, so right there, the foot isn't all the way tucked into this corner. I'm stopping with the needle on the line. And that's important because then when we do the other side, we have to make sure we do the same thing, right? So I'm going to skip a line, and I'm going to make sure my foot is pulled all the way tucked into the ruler. And then the same thing, lining up the line on the crosshair, and stop when the needle touches the line and come back. And again, this is more of a Spin E Fex style because we're rotating it. So we'll skip 2 lines and make sure the foot is tucked in all the way, and make sure your needle is in the same start position, because otherwise that's when you're going to start getting that messy center if we don't do that. So making sure that we're in the right spot. So skip and then line up the next one. Until we touch the crosshair line, and then come back. And then skip and line it up. Okay, let's cut these guys now since they're in our way. Oh, darn it. Let's see, we can give ourselves a little space to get in there. Well, I guess I'll leave a little bit because then it'll be easier to cut him later. Sometimes if you make it so short, it really can be tricky to get what you want when you want to trim it. So again, count your 2 spaces, skip, and then a line, stitching all the way out to the crosshair line. So this is a nice arc on this template. This is a nice, pretty arc, and I really like it. And it's not like it gets too narrow. It's what I call symmetrical. I can roll this arc along and keep making it if I want to. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the next one. Skipping here and lining up for the next one. Okay, and I think we have one more. I'm gonna lock my my stitching line disc back on his tether because he runs off. So now he's trapped. All right, let's see where we are. We'll kind of show you what we're doing here. I think we had one more that we needed. Yeah, we do. One more, maybe 2 more. 1, 2, line up. Yeah, this will be the last one. And then we're gonna go ahead and flip it around once we get this part done. So get back to the center. Now we can just flip this over to the other side, and we're going to use that spacing gauge to make sure that when we line it up, we're going to close. Now we don't have to close. We could literally make it so we have some other random rule and we just sew till the foot stops. I mean, these don't have to touch, but if you want them to touch, this is where you would line up with your spacing gauge in order to make sure your feather is your lobe is gonna close. I wouldn't try to guess if you move the center, you might get something different. So it's important that you go ahead and use the spacing gauge if you want the petal flowers to close. Make sure that you use that spacing gauge, and that will give you that closure. So these are all going to be double stitched, and that means that they'll have a lot of visual impact. They're going to be really bold, which I love, especially with this awesome thread. So if you are going to do this, I don't recommend this particular design for an area where you have a really bold seam in the center, because this would be really tricky, I think. If you're trying to have all these stitches come right back into a center area, it would be really challenging. So let's see, we have two more, and then we're going to do some fun embellishments of this design too. We're going to do some different things. So we kind of need to finish it so that we have the reference lines for the rest of the design. And here's our last one. So make sure you're tucking your foot right into that, because that's the anchor spot, and that'll make sure that the curves are mostly symmetrical. If they're a stitch off, I don't really care. That one wasn't as pretty of a closure. So let's go ahead and tack this, and we'll jump stitch right up to the top, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So we'll just jump stitch, and we're going to put the foot right in this space right there so that the edges of the foot are touching on both sides, and then that's when you can put your needle down. Okay, and now we're going to use our spacing gauge a lot for this. Right now, I want a 1/2 inch space, and I want it to be about the same as it goes up to this point. So as the foot comes up, we're going to stop at the crosshair line right there. So stop right there, right in the line. And I'm going to flip it so you can see, but you wouldn't have to. Now you're just going to put this arc on that side. You're going to use the same relationship. You're going to make sure you have that 1/2 inch. That's going to bring the needle right in the middle, and you're going to stop when the foot is centered in the space, just like we did with the other one. So right there, you can see that it's evenly spaced right between the two petals right there. So same thing, 1/2 inch with the spacing gauge to get us right up to that top, and stopping in the crosshair line. So you can see if I wanted to just align it like this on this side, I could, and I could just put this right there. I just don't think you guys can see that really well, so I'm going to flip it around. All right, so there's the arc, and I can just put that right on there and just open it enough to get me down so that the foot can be in that space right there, centered. And then we'll just move this one onto this side. Okay, same thing. We're just gonna, we can even tuck that right up in there on either side. If you're at the top, you can start at the point up here, and if you're at the base down here, you can use that and then just pivot it until you have that 1/2 inch. And that'll help you make that echo really nice. So like right here, I can put this right on the center and then just pivot that like that. That gives you a pretty strong visual anchor when you're lining things up, and then all I have to do is just pivot around that. So I don't have to adjust both sides, just one. okay? So again, here we could line it up right here, and then all we have to do is adjust the one side out there. Having that as the reference spot for the top or the bottom, that's going to help us make sure that we don't have to adjust too many times, too many ways. So there's my 1/2 inch, and I'll sew right down. Get my foot right lined up in there. I bumped my head on the camera. Could you guys tell? All right, so let's show you kind of what we're getting. This is what we're getting over here. Let's turn this a little bit wider so you can see what we're doing. Isn't that pretty? It's like a big powerhouse flower, like a big daisy. It's kind of got some skinny petals. I don't know. We'll just keep going around until we finish it, and then we've got one more embellishment to put on with this one. Plus I want to show you an option for maybe an edge-to-edge fill that can be done with this. And if you do like free motion, it has a good free motion component as well. So this is pretty routine. I'm just using my crosshair line, sewing down until my foot fits in that little groove, and then anchoring it and using my 1/2 inch spacer right there. So that 1/2 inch spacer is going to help me have that pretty 1/4 inch echo right there, right up to that crosshair line. Now, we're on the last line, so let me cut this thread because I want to show you we need to do something different for this last part right here. Let's get some of these out of here. Just cut these. Okay, so many threads, right? That is the end of this arc right here. I want to touch it. So no matter what, when I line this up, I want to make sure that I'm a 1/4 inch away from right there. So now I don't really care what's happening over here anymore. All I want to do is close my design. So that is what's important for this last part. Even if it's not perfect, it's better if it's closed, right? So we'll just tack that. All right, so what do you think? Do you guys like that? It's just one template and you're able to do so many different things, and you could see that you could use those arcs for different things. Because I think with this template, it kind of looks like the arc changes, but it doesn't. I mean, if you just look at it like that, it's just the same. It's a symmetrical arc, and you have 2 foot stops on either side. So that means that you can use this for so many different things. And then this right here, this makes like a nice little V right here. You could use that for so many different things for fills. It looks awesome. All right, so let's put one more embellishment in there. Let me see if I have it. So now I'm going to show you this part right here that we did on the top, okay? All right. Let's scoot some of these things over. So here, we're going to make this fill the space in between the petals, okay? All right, now we want to use, the line is not quite long enough, I think, on this side for us to line up this. I mean, you could make it longer, but what I can do not to have more marking is I could use this line right here. So that way I know I can use this. I don't have to extend this line. So in the interest of fewer markings, then this would be how you could do that. Now, if we're lined up, we should potentially come right into that spot. However, always check, especially if it looks like it is too big. And you can kind of slow down, get yourself right to that spot. And then same thing, you're using this line and the centering line out here. Let's see, where is it? It's not lining up too good. Oh, there it is. It's that one. I was like, where is it? Okay, there we go. So you can see right away, I'm pretty much have the correct spacing. So remember we talked about those random rules? Because we use the same rule each time, then that made it so that hopefully all of these will be about the same size. So it looks like I have a little smushing to get myself lined up there at the top. So I will do that. And as I come in, if I need to make 1 or 2 stitch adjustments, I can. And then I'll just keep going and get it lined up. And there's the center line on this side, so you can see I might need to shift it up or down a little bit, and then double check my spacing right there. If the spacing is way off, stitch up to the middle and then grade back into this side. You know, like if for some reason you just can't seem to make both sides fit evenly, then you could sew up to the middle, and then you could check this side and get yourself in. So it should be pretty close. It shouldn't be way out of tolerance, but you know, for some reason you just couldn't make it fit. That could be a way that you could make that adjustment and get yourself around the design nice and smooth. So I am lined up on the center line. And that's important because that's going to make this peak right here stay right in the middle of the lobes. So that is kind of something that I would want to be looking for. I wouldn't want to have it not do that. So as I line this up, I mean, if you had the peak of this a little offset and all the other ones were on, I do think that that would show, and that would be something that I would not prefer. So let me show you what we're doing here. Right there, I'm keeping my spacing gauge flush. This outer edge right there is flush with the template, and this inner piece right there is right at the tip, right where I want the needle to end. Okay, so the crosshair lines, again, you're getting way more value than you might think that you would get out of these because you have those crosshair lines that you can use as your reference resource. Okay, and we're almost around, so get ourselves lined up. Always got to be able to check and see if you are lined up, so make sure you're looking in there at the right angle. Like sometimes if you're kind of looking at a slant, you might not see if you're all the way on or not, and definitely that spacing gauge is your friend here. So again, on this last one, we should be able to come right into the design because that's right where we left off. So I'll show you. All right, so getting lined up on the line. And then you can see, obviously this one's way too big, so that means we kind of need to shift it down some. So make sure that we're lined up and get us right back. Trying to keep that center line. Maybe a little smushing is needed for this last one. So could be something as simple as the quilt maybe drew up a little bit. Okay, and then I'll pull this off so that you can see how we're doing, and then I'll see if we have any questions or anything. So that's changing the shape a lot, and that's cute. I actually like it. I like the shape of it, but I feel like this is maybe too much. But you could do cross-hatching on the inside. What I did is I felt like this was a little too empty and it needed just a little bit more definition on that. And so what I did is I did an interior echo, and I'll show you how to do it. So just like we talked about before, you're going to use your foot space, and we're just going to sew in a few stitches, and you're looking for the foot to touch right there, because we're going to lay the ruler right up against the existing stitch line. So we want this to touch the line. So let's put this back on. And I'm showing this because I think this is really important, because it shows you how to travel. You know, if you're trying to do certain things, it'll help you travel. So let's go ahead and line this up. Let me show you. We'll do it this way. Here we go. This should pretty much line right up because we just sewed right on that line. So if we can't line it up, that might mean that we have one more stitch in order to pull this down and get it lined up. So you're going to go to the one side and you're going to stop with the needle in the crosshair line. Don't go past the crosshair, right? So stop right there and then line up this side on the curve. See how it was a little wide? That's why it's important that you've got to stop in the middle, okay? Otherwise, you're not going to get that nice spacing. So our needle is on this side. So all I have to do is I have to sew about 4 stitches right into this stitch line to the corner, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm making my foot touch. So I will echo this side up to the crosshair line. Stop with your needle in the line, and then line it back up on this side and go to the stitch line. And then, so there's a few stitches right here, just a very, very few where you're traveling. And I think that traveling is really, really important. It is such a valuable skill that's going to make you a better quilter. So I really encourage you to do it whenever you can. So here, see, we're not quite at the top, but we're in this crosshair line. So we'll line this up, and that's going to give us that 1/4 inch right there. And then we'll go ahead, we'll stitch our few stitches up to the point, and we'll come back down. You can always lay the ruler on there. If the ruler can't fit, that might mean you need one more stitch, because the ruler can't come down far enough to be on that stitch line. Okay, so we'll stitch right to the white chalk mark, and then we'll line up this side. So we've done half. I'll tack it right now. I'll finish it just so you can see the difference. I'll show you the difference between the two sides. So within that, there's a lot of choices that you can make. So when you look at this, what do you like better? Do you like it more open on this side, or do you like it with the echo, with the double stitch on that side? Yeah, you know what? I think Jane and Sally Tutton, sounds like must be friends or sisters or whatever, 2 people. I can see using this in negative space. I can see using a lot of these different designs in negative space, and then maybe using some like a channel of 2 lines and purls and connecting them and kind of making them go in different directions. And what that does is create a link between the designs so that they aren't just kind of out there standing by themselves, or even just putting some fills around them would be a great way to use them in a negative space. I think that would be awesome. And then let's see. All right, I'm going to kind of scoot down to the bottom so we can see what people... Yeah, so Mary Sterling, thank you so much for your angel. I appreciate you participating, and I'm glad that you're experimenting. You know, I think that I remember getting my first template and thinking, oh, it sews a circle. And then before too long, I was like, wait a minute, it does that, it does that, it does that too. Oh, it does something like that. And when I look at this, I no longer see this shape right here anymore. I see a really big, almost like a clamshell arc right here. This could be a clamshell right here, a pointed clamshell that you could just stack and use a reference line. That would be so awesome, don't you think? So I love that we can kind of expand on what the potential is. Let's see. Yeah, paper and stitching line discs. I love it. So Liz, on this one that we did, this one over here, the hardest part of this one is just remembering to stitch backwards first. But yeah, you know, if somebody talks to me, or if I, you know, move the ruler or whatever, you know, I'm like, oh, don't talk to me. I'm stitching. Wait till I get to a stop point. My daughter will come and she'll stand next to me and she won't say anything. And I know that that is a sign for me to get to a stopping place so she can talk to me. So, okay. Yeah, so Marilyn, I'll answer your question. Marilyn Hardman, you know, this is a circles on quilts, and because it has a closed shape, some of the circles on quilts sort of have this flat bottom, which means that it might be a little harder to make like a Spin E Fex style with it, but you can always move from crosshair line to crosshair line even if it doesn't have this closed area. So if you have a circles on quilts and you have your crosshair square, you have an infinite number of designs that you can make. So, all right. Yay, I'm glad you're using jump stitches, Nana. Hi, Di Werner. And you know what else I think would be really cool is you could also use a different echo. Like, I mean, you could come in here and you could use this as another echo, and it will just change the swag right in there, you know, because this will change the shape because it curves out. You could even make it come where it comes right into the corner. I'll scoot this up a little bit. Let's do this with my stitching line disc. We'll just put this in just for fun, for gee whiz. This is something where you would want to think about the path as always, but I think this shape, I mean, it naturally goes together, all of these, but you could line it up so you could have that, like that. And I think that would look super cool too, right? Or you could do your double echo and then do that. So an infinite number of choices. You have a million choices. So I just have one last design that we're going to share. And it's going back to the concept that this could be used as a Spin E Fex. So let me put it right over here. So I just made a little centering mark right there. Maybe we'll do two. I think we'll line it up down here. Here you can see how we could line this up. So if we wanted to, you could use this as a border. You could sew this shape and you would come out to the furthest edge and you would move this over and then you would line it up on the bottom and you could sew it again. So this could be a very easy border. It is big. It's a big border. It'd be 4 7/8 for this. So about a 5-inch border. And you could also flip them. You could do one this way and make the next one touch in the center, but line up on this side. So many ideas for you, but we'll just line this up right on this center line. I want to try to get him lined up right in that reference line. Right there. Okay, that way he'll be in the line. This one's pretty quick. Thanks for hanging with me. All right, so right here, we'll line it up. And we'll sew the whole thing, okay? Slow around the corner. Okay, and now I'm going to flip it, and we'll do the same alignment, and it should sew out exactly correct, you know, in terms of size, the exact same size. Now, I can sew back down this side and use this and move down, or I can put a fill in here and get to this point. It depends, you know, just on what your skill level is. We'll assume that we're just going to use the ruler for travel though. But you could easily do a little S curve in there. And we'll come back down to here. Okay, and then we'll move it down and line it up. And this would be how you could make this into an edge-to-edge fill. And I'll talk real quick about how we would want to line it up if we wanted to do the next row. So I'll show you how to line that up in just a second. So if I was going to do this just for some kind of visual symmetry, I would alternate which side I double stitch on. So if I do this one, obviously got to sew the whole shape. So I'll go this way. I went the other way last time. And it does make kind of an interesting shape. I won't say weird, but interesting. But this side will double stitch on the opposite side. So on this side, when we traveled, we double stitched this way. So we'll double stitch this way this time. And if we just do that as an alternation, it'll kind of balance the amount of thread. So I'll just tie this off real quick. I'll show you how we'll line up if we were doing multiple rows. You don't even have to mark, which I think is kind of cool. Well, you have to mark some, but not a lot. Okay, let me cut that. So when I thought about how I might like this and how I might like to use it, especially maybe in a negative space where you had a lot of room, this is kind of a big shape. You know, it's not real tiny. And the center of the shape is right through the midline right here. And then obviously that's the 4 7/8 for the distance here. So let me just show you. I'll make a couple of reference lines and we'll show you how you would line it up if you wanted to do another one. You don't need to mark this distance here, like how far away. We're going to mark the middle right there. And we would use the same center line because we want them to be perpendicular to each other. And once you made your first line, you could make, you know, a couple of these lines so you could get several rows. Well, what I want then would be to fit this shape into this space. And how do we know how far down we need to go? I'll show you. What we want right there is we want this to be 1/4 inch. We want to just kiss it, and we want to have ourselves be right in that line. And then remember we said that you have this straight line down here as a reference. So this is how we would align it to make sure that it is parallel like this. We use this line right here. So let's get lined up. So I'm checking right there to make sure that I have this 1/4 inch spacing right there. So I need just a little bit more right there. All right, and then I'll line it up. And then my foot would go in that stitch line. It looks like it's slightly bigger. And I'll only do the half of it because we don't want to cut into that other design back there. I cannot get that thread up though. It's being really ornery. There we go. Very tricky. All right. So here, this is that spacing that we're checking. So I want to make sure it's the correct space, and then I'll get this lined up on the bottom nice and straight. So we should be able to just kiss that right there. Make sure. Perfect. And then we can put this one in, and we don't even have to mark that. This would be that space right there. And then when we just flip it, we would just do the other side, and we'd be able to line it up just the same. So let me flip it around. So we have those same cross marks right here that would allow us to line up our needle position. And then technically we should be the same out on this side as well. So we've only done half, but of course you would stack those ovals onto each other. And then what I liked about this design is because it does have a large opening, you could play with different fills in the oval. So each one of those openings you can put different fills, and they don't have to be free motion fills. They could be ruler fills, or they can be free motion fills if you feel comfortable doing that. But it's a big design, so it would quilt up very quickly, and you could tuck them right into each other like that by measuring that. So you don't have to measure this distance. You would just make this in the center line and then mark these intersections, and that's what will let you stack them like that. Because this is the middle, you could put this one right in this curve, and then when you do the next row, you would put those right into the next curve, and they would line up right with this. So I think that could be a really fun edge-to-edge design that I think would quilt up pretty quickly. So anyway, that's my last design for the day. Yes, I do use the spacing gauge all the time, Janet. I'm going to put my order in with my family for my next year's birthday. Oh, good. With the change would be good for template. Yeah, so I think, you know, so many different designs are good for template. Anytime that you're putting some layering in, like, you know, here we've got this, you could cut this open area and or cut these little pieces. I think cutting a bigger piece is easier. Leave this pink, cut this piece. But, you know, right here, like on this one, I think this would make amazing template, being able to cut this center piece, and then you'd have this pink outline here. I think that would look amazing. So please turn the design over. Yes, ma'am. Your wish is my command. That is from Liz. I did try to always use a different color so that you can see more clearly what the texture is. Let's see, can you see that okay? Let's see if we can come up just a little bit with it. There we go. All right, so these are the ovals, and you can see it's, I mean, it's really going to be a very clean look, and you're going to get lots of little segments, and then, you know, just even something simple. See, I'm putting chalk on this, but, you know, if you didn't want to overstitch and you just wanted to do these continuous, something simple like this, you know, where you just go up and then go down. And you can even echo this a couple of times if you want more fill in there, and then you're down to your next position and you're ready to go with your next one. So if you feel comfortable doing that, or if you had a narrow back to back, that could fill this. This is 4 7/8 distance. So I think that, I'm trying to think, with 3-inch S curve is like 6 inches. So I know we don't have a 5-inch, but I think you would have to use the 3 in order to cross this, and you would align it essentially so it would be centered, and then whatever you got on one side would be mirrored on the other if you used a back-to-back for this. So then this is the biggest one, and that's the one that is with the pin in the center. So all of these don't touch except for out here where they crossed over, where we double stitch. They don't touch in the center. Each lobe is sort of its individual part. And then we put this cute Spin E Fex, I think that is number 5. Yes, mini Spin E Fex number 5 in the center. And then this one was all Circles on Quilts number 15. And we can just cut that loose thread. And you can see I like the definition here with the double echo more than I like this. This kind of feels like it needs something, but that's up to you. And you could even extend this design by putting another layer if you needed it to be bigger. And also, since these are narrow, you could also make this a Spin E Fex point right there. And you could do a little Spin E Fex span of whatever, you know, there, or a circle or whatever you wanted. You could make this bigger just by using those crosshair lines. And then here, this was using the base design as a Spin E Fex, spinning around the center and using the 8-point reference lines. So obviously this could be done with the 8-point, the 5-point, the 6-point crosshair, whatever you wanted. You could do this design with different crosshairs and change the design. And then here we just use this same arc to put these echoes in to create a little bit more definition. And then we just connected this, the bottom of the template, just to change the shape of that petal. So really, really fun. I think it looks awesome. I hope that you guys enjoy it. So let me just scroll through super fast. Yeah, so Linda, you're right. This one that we did kind of right here, this is very similar to the 6-inch spiral. The difference is that the 6-inch spiral is a very tall, deep arc. It's big, whereas this is going to be shallower. So just different options as far as how you could use it. So I'm challenging you guys when you say that I'm so creative. I know you are too. That's why you're here, because you have a creative bend and you want more inspiration to do more things. So I hope that you guys will share the stuff that you're doing, because I want to see it too. I'm nosy. All right. So how many people actually have this template? Anybody? So I'm going to show you how I got it real quick. This is the main anchor template in the Meadow Dance set. And the Meadow Dance was Leonie West's designs. And I think this was like a border set. Maybe this is the border. There's a feather set and a border set. And I don't know which is which. I'm not sure which one I have. Yeah, I think this is the border set. So it came with some different borders, and I think it has an arc in it too, like a 6-inch inside-outside curve or something like that. There's 2 different sets, and this comes in one of the sets, which I think it's the border set. I'm not positive, but anyway, so as I've told you before, if you buy a set, you get more value for your dollar. So if you wanted to check it out, you could buy it as a set with the Meadow Dance. These templates, the Circles on Quilts, because they're so much bigger and they have a lot of reference lines and they're a little bit more complicated, it takes more tooling to make them. So they tend to be a little bit more expensive to buy individually. So by the time I bought this, you know, you're halfway to some of these other templates. So that's why I tend to recommend that you buy these in a set if you don't already have them. Of course, you can buy it by itself. It's up to you, your choice. But I just think that that's something that is good for you to know. I can never beat the price of So Steady's collections, you know, like if you ordered them individually, there's no way you would ever be as good as getting a set. Okie dokie. All right, so that's it. That was just a single template, but you can see like what happened is as I started doing it, I was like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that. And like, how do I cut it down to 3 designs for just for the 2-hour time frame? Okay, well, I'm going to let you go. Go have dinner. Go be with your family. Go relax. Let your brain cool off. Use an ice pack. No, I'm just kidding. So I will post this on Facebook. One reminder and one request. Please, if you would like to participate in the angel challenge, which was you fabricating an angel based on my video of last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, last week. If you want to participate in the angel challenge, I am posting the people that have already sent theirs in. So when you send it to me, I will notify you of what entry number you have. And then I will post your picture with your name if you want. If you don't want, that's fine. But please let me know what templates you use. I try to put that on the picture so people can make the visual connection. And so that way we'll be collecting all of them. I'm calling them the Angel Choir now because we have 9 of them. So it's been really fun to see how different people are using them differently. And like, I'll give you an example. This would make an awesome angel body if you have this one. This would make an awesome angel feather if you have that one. So use what you have. You don't have to necessarily buy something, and you don't have to make it like I did. Just make it your own. But we'd love to see what you come up with. And the person that will win that will be given a Spin E Fex number 13 at 11.5 inches. So a nice, big, fun template that you can use. And it's random drawing. You are entering to be a participant in the drawing. We're not judging your skill level or whatever. We just want you to have fun and expand your horizons. Okay, and then now my request. That's the reminder, and I'm going to show you my request now. So Steady has amazing cutting tools. I don't know if you guys know this, but they do. And I've been using them more and more lately. And I have made my first lifetime quilt that I have wanted to make, and it's a wedding ring quilt. I have wanted to make this quilt forever, and I got the Westalee templates, and now I am starting. And mine is going to have black and white 4-patch right here as I make more of them. I haven't made enough of them, but I am interested in doing this as maybe a live class event. And if you're interested in making this wedding ring, if you could send me a note. I'm kind of looking to see how many people are actually doing it. And the style that I'm going to be doing is this scrappy style. So we might even have the potential to do fabric share. If you feel like you don't have enough of certain colors, that might be something we could integrate. So this is a template set that Leonie West has, and this includes set number 2, which is pieces 7 and 8. So you would have to commit to purchasing the wedding ring set 1 and 2 in order to make this. So you can go online to sewsteady.com and you can see if that's something that you're interested in terms of cost, if you feel like you have the energy to do it. And it's a very gentle arc here. This is a very gentle curve. And I was using my grid glider and able to line it up so that I got a really accurate seam allowance. So we'll be sharing tips like that, and also organizational tips for how to vary your fabric and make sure you get the right tones that you want to do. So if you're interested in that, can you please message me? You can message me on Facebook at Fabricated Quilts, or you can send me an email, info@fabricatedquilts.com, and it is fabricated with a K, no C. So thank you so much. I'm going to say goodbye. Have a great week, and I will look for you guys next week. Take care.